Hello, LordBitememan. Am I pronouncing that correctly? This response, of course, is several months late, but I'm a relatively new member. In fact, I just joined yesterday. There are a couple things I'd like to say about your video. I do agree that science isn't everything. I agree morals are important, and I agree that philosophy is important, and I agree that all those things, such as morality and ethics, are also important. But two things that I'd like to say. First of all, I'd like to stress that the majority of the eventual effects of scientific progress has been progress for mankind. There have been initial backlashes with several theories. Some theories didn't really have a great deal of backlash, like the theory of universal gravitation wasn't really used to justify any horrible acts. But yeah, a lot of theories did have initial backlash, but I like to stress that that's not always the case, and I'd also like to stress that it's not just the case in science. Keep in mind that the Nazis not only used social Darwinism as a direct result of evolutionary theory, they also used the idea of Übermensch and Untermensch from Friedrich Nietzsche's philosophy. And of course, he was not in any way referring to genocide of any sort. His philosophy was only tangentially related to what Hitler was talking about. So keep in mind that. Keep in mind that any idea, no matter how good, can be perverted for the bad. And I'd also like to stress that the vast majority of progress in science has eventually led to a bettering of mankind. I mean, we've had setbacks, but we've had setbacks with a lot of other things too. The other thing I'd like to say, and you didn't really mention this too much in your video, you talked about somewhat about philosophy and morals, but I would like to say that there is morals and there's philosophy and there's metaphysics and meaning and purpose, but don't think that science doesn't have anything to say about those things. Our understanding, for example, of the existence of the nervous system in other animals came from science, and yet that has led us to know that other animals can feel pain and can experience suffering, and I'm sure that has contributed to the ideas of animal cruelty and the vegetarian and animal rights and vegan movements. And also understand that without science, without some methodology, and this is not just science, this is all evidence-based methodology. Science, anthropology, history, natural history, sociology, psychology, the soft sciences, the hard sciences, and the other evidence-based fields like history and that can help to determine our purpose in the world, to determine the meaning of our life. I mean, certainly, I'm just saying that you shouldn't count science out of the philosophical debate. Science has a lot to say. Modern quantum theory can throw demonstrate that there may in fact be problems with the original idea of determinism. So it has things to say about determinism. Cosmology certainly has a lot to say about our place in the universe. I mean, certainly our philosophies were different when we thought the Earth was flat and when we thought the Earth was the center of the universe. Clearly, the heliocentric universe, and later the fact that we're not even the center of the galaxy, which is of itself nowhere near the center of the universe, certainly that gives us a much different perspective on our place in the world. So I'd just like to stress that, yes, science doesn't directly answer the question of why, but it's important to consider scientific knowledge and other types of knowledge. You can't simply reason in a vacuum, and scientific knowledge is important for us to understand why we're here. It has things to say on that. And I'd also, again, like to stress that the majority of scientific progress has been for the good, and even though we fought initial backlashes, nowadays, I mean, we complain about medication and everything, but it's the same medication we complain about that allows us to live, well, not just medication, but all of medicine, allows us to live 70 to 80-year lifespans as opposed to dying in our 30s. It's science that's given us everything that we have. It's science that's given us YouTube. It's science that's given us the internet, the microprocessor, electric lighting. So the majority of scientific progress has been for the good. And of course, science has also given us a better understanding of the world. I think science is more important than just its practical applications. I think the knowledge of who we are and how the universe works, even if it's not applicable to anything, would still have a great deal of value. Just knowing the world around us, whether or not we can actually apply that knowledge, it's still a good thing to know. It's still got importance. Kind of like you can't really apply poetry, but it's still important in some respect. So I'd like to stress that. And I'd like to stress that any ideology, including Friedrich Nietzsche's existentialism, any ideology, including most religions, even religions that seem to advocate peace, can be twisted and distorted. Just look at Christianity, how that's been twisted and distorted by people to produce atrocities, whereas supposedly the message of Christ was peaceful. Most people don't recognize the extreme religious radicals, but just remember, it's not just science. Anything can be corrupted by anyone if they're willing to corrupt it to suit their needs. Thank you, and